man that was supposed to pay me, he went to Memphis, Tennessee to a funeral. Had I known that he was gonna leave to go to the funeral, I would have got my money ahead of time. That way I would have had my money. Because miss, I didn't know what was going on. I told you, with all due respect, I didn't have the money, so I got kicked out. And I was walking around the neighborhood in the nearest town. All you have to do is call her. Everything I'm telling you is the truth. Yes, ma'am. I haven't seen you in so long. You look totally different. I used to be a trustee in Angola in the early 80s, and you had came through the front gate.
Oh,
I was a cook.
that's been a while. I guess you changed too.
Thank you. I'm almost 60.
All right, look.
Isn't that fascinating? Now, I doubt that he could ever forget her. Miss Renatza has been around a long time. She's OG. She was actually the first woman in Louisiana to become a certified corrections executive, and she was also deputy warden of Angola. So yeah, she's up there. Anyways, we're gonna watch this parole revocation hearing, but before we do, we're going to take a blast to the past, to 2022, to watch yet again a revocation hearing that he went through before we come back to the present day 7/18/2024 to watch the one with Miss Renatza. With that, let's jump in.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes, sir.
You have your parole revocation questionnaire there in front of you?
Yes, sir.
Do you recognize your signature at the bottom?
Yes, sir.
All of those answers that you gave, are those all accurate?
Yes, sir.
And are you ready to proceed today?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to read to you the rule violations that you are alleged to have violated. Then I'm going to ask you to plead either guilty, not guilty, guilty with a statement, or not guilty with the statement. Then we'll discuss it. Okay?
Okay.
The first violation is alleged 3A, on or about December the 27th of 2021, you failed to get permission before moving from your residence of record. How do you plead to that?
I would like to plead not guilty with a statement, sir.
Okay. The next one is 3B, on or about March the 4th of 2022, you left your approved residence and your whereabouts were unknown. How do you plead to that?
I like to plead not guilty with a statement, sir.
Okay. The next one is number 10. You have only paid $22 towards your supervision fees and are currently $2,372 in arrears on your fees. How do you plead to that?
I'm gonna plead guilty to that one, sir, because with a statement. I'm gonna plead guilty to that one statement.
All right, okay. Number 13, special condition, you failed to attend sex offender treatment on October the 19th of 2021, December the 14th of 2021, January the 11th of 2022, February the 8th of 2022, and March the 8th of 2022. And on January the 25th of 2022, you arrived at the treatment facility and stated you had just been released from the hospital and needed to be quarantined. On 4/5/22, you arrived at the treatment center and stated you did not have $20 that you get paid on Friday. You were told you could not stay due to non-payment, but stayed anyway. On April the 19th of 2022, you again showed up to treatment and stated you did not have $20, but that you get paid on Friday. You were told again you could not stay due to non-payment. On April the 19th of 2022, due to non-compliance, you were negatively discharged from sex offender treatment. How do you plead to those allegations?
I want to plead not guilty with a statement, sir.
Mr. Thompson, your case has been assigned to Mr. Roche. Mr. Roche is going to conduct the interview. He will begin discussing with you. I'm sure he will ask you to make your statement. So it's up to Mr. Roche. Mr. Roche.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Thompson. How are you?
I'm doing all right, sir. Thanks to the good Lord.
Good. I'm going to give you a chance to address condition number 3. You failed to get permission before you moved from your residence. You want to make a statement.
Yes, sir. That's not true. I never left my place of residence at 25. I was kicked out of my apartment because I didn't have the money to pay my rent. I had to pay $125 every week. I didn't have the money, so I got kicked out. And I was walking around the neighborhood in the nearest town. I never left my residence to try to find me a place to live, to lay my head. And when
Did you inform your parole officer that you are out of money and that you were evicted from your apartment?
I had told Mr. Everly that, sir. I had told him that man to man, face to face. May I continue?
And what did your parole officer suggest that you do?
He told me to go back home to my landlord and make amends. You get a loan to get a loan. That's what he told me. And that's what I did.
Okay. So basically, you want to get along with your parole officer. Your landlord. You just didn't pay the rent. Right. I just didn't have the money to pay my rent. I didn't have a job, and she kicks me out. But she let me come back after after I scrape up some kind of hustle, some kind of money to give her. You know what I'm saying? And on 2021, Mr. Matt Rivers placed me in 7 days locked up. He locked me up for 7 days for not being able to come to my class because I was working at the movie tavern here in Covington, and I had paid. Okay, we're not addressing 13 yet. So tell me why you're $372 in arrears on your supervision. That must be 3 or 4 years of supervision fees.
Okay, Mr. Roche, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm an old man, and I've been in prison since I was 16 years old, and I've been struggling. I've been literally struggling. I'm in a state where I don't have no family and nobody to depend on or nobody to help me. And I've been struggling to pay my rent, to buy my food, to try to pay for insurance on my car and pay to my car notes, and I lost my car, everything. I don't have nothing, sir, and I've been struggling. Mr. Thompson. Yes, sir.
Got to help yourself before somebody else helps you. So why weren't you employed?
I was having jobs, but I kept losing my jobs because of the virus. And then I stayed in the hospital 37 days on a ventilation machine. But I do have the money to pay my parole fees. I can pay the parole fees now.
So tell me about condition number 13. You are a sex offender, and you are required to attend sex offender classes.
Yes, sir.
For some reason, you got dismissed and thrown out the program. Tell me why.
I didn't have the money for I didn't have the $20 for that day. And when I had finished doing some work or putting up a horseshoe garage and a driveway, like with a carport, I never did get paid for my money for putting that up. And the man that was supposed to pay me, he went to Memphis, Tennessee to a funeral. Had I known that he was gonna leave to go to the funeral, I would have got my money ahead of time. That way I would have had my money. That's where the confusion come in at. The first time, and I'm still waiting for him to come back, and he never did come back. That's why I told Mr. Everly, my parole officer, that I was gonna have it on Friday, but I had wound up missing 2 Fridays. And that's what happened.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes, sir.
Sit back, relax, and stop talking for a second.
Oh, yes, sir.
And Mr. Thompson, you are a felon. You are on supervision.
Yes,
you
sir.
have responsibilities, and you how can you exist outside without a job to pay your fees, to pay your car note, to pay your rent?
And my groceries.
How are you gonna survive?
I'm going to get me a job.
But you had a chance to get a job and you didn't.
I lost my job, sir, from the coronavirus. When I went to get my job after I got out of hospital, and then I was cutting yards and doing this and that, doing odds and end jobs.
Okay,
I
okay.
had no problem with working.
You get out the hospital.
Sir,
When did you get out of the hospital?
in January, I even took the paper to the lady that ran the class.
January 2021?
Sir, I didn't hear you, sir.
January of 2021?
Yes, sir.
But you weren't arrested until December. In December, you failed to tell your floor officer that you had left that address.
I did not leave my address. I had,
Okay, we understand that. You got thrown out of your apartment.
right. And if you look at the paper, I called the parole officer, my parole officer, several times to let him know that what had happened.
Okay, okay.
And I've been out 3 years and 4 months and I've been paying my fees. Why all of a sudden I couldn't pay my fees? That was never taken into account. 3 years and 4 months and I never had a problem with this. All of a sudden I have a problem because I fell off, man.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes, sir.
speak when I ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
I don't need all that rhetoric.
Right.
So,
Yes, sir.
do you have a job waiting on you if released?
Yes, sir. I do.
And what job is that?
I'm going to work at Amazon off Fremont in Slidell, Louisiana.
And that's a guaranteed job.
Yes, sir.
Do you have evidence of that employment?
No, sir. I've been locked up in this jail 5 months. I don't have the evidence of nothing. I'm locked up.
Now, question, Mr. Thompson. Did you complete all 4 phases of your sex offender treatment when you were incarcerated?
Wait a minute. Say that part again. Did I complete? I can't hear you.
Did you complete all 4 phases of the sex offender treatment program when you were incarcerated?
Yes, sir. I completed my whole class and I got 3 trades.
Okay, at what facility did you complete your sex offender treatment?
I completed the whole thing before I went. That's the only way you can.
At what facility?
Louisiana State Penitentiary, Angola.
Okay. So the reason why you were drawn out of sex offender treatment is that you couldn't pay the fee.
Right.
You didn't
Right.
have $20. You didn't have $20.
No, I just didn't have it, sir. If I would have had, I would have paid. I've been paying it 3 years and 4 months. All of a sudden, I couldn't pay it. I just couldn't pay it. You couldn't squeeze blood out of a turnip. You know what I'm saying? Things happen, sir.
Okay. Mr. Marabella.
But if I get out now, day tomorrow, I'm gonna go pay that little.
Just a second, sir.
Mr. Thompson, please speak when you ask the question.
All right. Yes, sir.
Marabella, I'd like to call for the executive session at this time.
You want to talk to the position? I would like to talk to him first.
Let me talk to the gentleman first.
Okay. All right. There's been a request for executive session. Second.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Marable.
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson, we're going to take a brief recess. We're going into executive session to discuss confidential matters. We will be back shortly.
Sorry about that. I was listening from outside and I had to run back in to stop this, but the executive session actually went for about 5 minutes. So I guess they were researching and trying to figure out, check his backstory, but we'll pause it and start at the conclusion of it. Okay.
The parole board is back in session. Mr. Thompson, are you there? Mr. Thompson, somebody's there. Mr. Thompson? There he is. Okay. Mr. Thompson, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Have a seat. We're back.
All right, sir.
Thompson, you said you think you have a job at Amazon. Who have communicated with that?
No, the dude that's locked up with me, he's gonna get me on there.
I got you. The dude that you locked up with is gonna get you on. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
it's a big warehouse.
I got you. I hear you. Okay. Okay. We're gonna hear from Mr. Everly.
Yes, sir.
Okay, hang on just a second. We got one question for you.
Mr. Thompson, I heard you say earlier you had the money for your fees. How much money you got?
I got over 1,700. My
Okay,
neighbor.
all right. That's what I wanted to know, because your sex offender treat was way more important than your fee.
All right, sir.
All right.
That's gonna be taken care of.
Okay, Mr. Everly?
Yes, sir.
How you doing,
Yeah.
boss man?
Hey, Steve, how you been, buddy? Good to see you.
I'm good. How you doing, Pete?
Great. Hey, would they take him back in that sex offender treatment if he catches up on his arrears?
I don't think so. We may have to find another place for him. She negatively discharged him. So because she did this once before, it built up. That's why the $95 he owes. He would go to the treatment and then she let him build it up. He don't have money to pay and she let him build up. That's why she stopped doing that, because he was in $95 in arrears and he kept coming. He would say, I get paid on Friday. The last 2 times he told me I get paid on Friday. And I told him, you need to have the money. The last time he did this, all I said was, if you don't have the money, they're going to make me do a sanction on you, a 3-day sanction. And he all but flipped out on me, waving his hands in the air, said, fine, I'll just go back and do my 2 years. I mean, in front of everybody else. And I told him, Ron, you need to calm down. And he said, no, I'm just going, and he stormed around. I'm going to do my 2 years. And then I said, okay, better yet, you be in my office tomorrow. At that point, he said, I think you're harassing me. So we went up there, we arrested him for violations, and that's where we're at today. The one thing I will say is, he did get an income tax check of reportedly of $800, and that didn't go to us. It was reported that he would disappear for 4 to 5 days at a time. Allegedly, he would do drugs and then come back after 4 or 5 days. So I have nothing against Mr. Thompson. It seems like he wants to do what he wants to do on his terms and doesn't want to follow what everyone else has to follow.
Appreciate it, Steve. Anybody else have any questions?
Thank you very much, Mr. Everly.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes, sir.
what did you do with your income tax check?
I paid off my past debt for my rent, and I went and put the rest on a trailer house that I was deposit on a trailer house that I was gonna go get moved to in Slidell. That's
You
why I
don't need
called-
a trailer house if you don't go to sex offender class, because we got a place to put you.
Sir,
You don't need a trailer if you don't go to don't pay your sex offender classes, because we have a place to put you. right where you are now.
I understand that, sir.
You need to get your priorities straight. It doesn't seem like you're doing that.
Well, I got it straight. It's just that I made a
Well,
mistake.
listen very closely.
Yes,
You
sir.
don't go to sex offender class, you go to prison.
Right.
If you don't go to sex offender class, you go to prison.
Yes, sir.
That's your priority.
Yes, sir. That's first thing.
Mr. Lott, are you still in the room?
Yes, sir.
He's right here.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Lott, has he given y'all any trouble since he's been in there?
He has not received a write-up since he's been in our facility.
Okay, just asking.
Okay. Anything you'd like to say, Mr. Thompson, before we vote?
Yes, sir. I'm not no bad person. And I try to do the best I can. And if I was to get out now, day tomorrow, I'm gonna go pay my parole fees and pay the $95 for my sex offense class, sir. And I goes to my classes. That's just
Where you
I
gonna
just
get the money from?
my boss man and my neighbor, my next door neighbor, and my landlord.
Well, why couldn't you get the money for the $20 if you all of a sudden you're gonna be able to come up with all this money?
Because I didn't know he was gonna go to Memphis, Tennessee to a funeral. That's why I missed the 2 payments, because he wound up staying in Memphis, Tennessee. He didn't come back from a funeral. That's what had happened.
You missed a lot more than 2 payments.
But it's 3 payments. That's why it's $95.
All right.
But I'm gonna pay it.
All right, Mr. Thompson. Panel ready to vote?
Yes.
Mr. Rocha?
Can I ask one?
Mr. Thompson, we are voting.
Oh, yes, sir.
Mr. Thompson, I find you guilty of violating Special Condition 13 of your sex offender contract. Therefore, I revoke your supervision.
Thank you, Mr. Rocha. Mr. Freeman?
I also find you guilty of violating your sex offender contract and moving without permission and revoke your parole.
Mr. Thompson, you got 2 votes to revoke your parole. You didn't do yourself very much good today. As Mr. Avery pointed out, you've got a real attitude. You want to do what you want to do and how you want to do it. And until you change that attitude while you're on supervision, you don't have all of the freedoms that you would have if you weren't under supervision. You're a sex offender. By law, you're required to take sex offender treatment. And, it seems to me that you had access to money. I mean, you telling me today, oh, I can get money from the landlord, I can get it from my boss, I can get it from here. You could have gotten that $20 to pay. You just chose not to. You had other priorities that you wanted to do. So it's a sad state of affairs, but you find yourself today revoked to serve your time. Kind of what you told Mr. Everly you wanted to do in the first place. So there you are. It appears that you have 3 votes to revoke your parole. So good luck to you.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir. We're done. But you. Well, okay.
So I'm not going to unpack this. It was a classic Roche Mirabella revocation hearing. I want to jump straight into his July 2024 revocation hearing. But before I do that, let me just give a little bit of background of his life in prison. So as he mentioned, he met Renatza back in the day. He was initially sentenced on October 1st, 1985, when he was just 16 years old for, it must have been a serious sexual assault case. Then his life was overturned due to the classic Miller versus Alabama in 2012, where the Supreme Court of the United States said that basically it's unconstitutional to lock up a child for life, to have a child die in prison. So he was given a chance at parole, and he was paroled on 1/28/2019. Now, it didn't take very long for him to get revoked. The revocation hearing that we just saw, 7/26/2022. Now, to his credit, he didn't seem to commit any, dangerous felonies. He just didn't abide by his, what he had to do. He every excuse in the book, he didn't do what he had to do. And one might argue, well, what do you expect for someone who's institutionalized? But neither, we don't need to get into that right now. I'm just sharing the dates. Now he had he had good time. He made good time on November 15, 2023. So he wasn't backing life. He just did a good job in prison. He probably went back there and said hi to all his buddies, got out in 2023. And then he was revoked again. And now we're seeing his revocation hearing on 7/18/2024. Let's see how he does. With that, let's jump in.
All right, good morning. The Committee on Parole is reconvening. We're now at St. Tammany Parish on Thursday, July 18, 2024. It's 9:48 a.m. Good morning. Would the officer please introduce yourself for the record?
Corporal Jonathan Lott.
Thank you, Corporal Lott, for accommodating us this morning. And we have Mr. Thompson. Good morning.
Good morning to you, miss. How you doing?
Good, thanks for asking. Mr. Thompson, let me introduce us to you. My name is Cheryl Renatza. This is Mr. Danny Byra to my left and Mrs. Carolyn Stapleton. All right, we're panel today and we're here for revocation decision. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, ma'am. I haven't seen you in so long. You look totally different.
Well,
I used to be a trustee in Angola in the early 80s, and you had came through the front gate.
oh,
I was a cook.
that's been a while. I guess you changed too.
Thank you. I'm almost 60.
All right, look, we're here for a revocation decision. I'm going to read the allegation against you. You'll enter a plea of guilty or not guilty. And then we'll have a conversation about it. But first do you have a parole revocation questionnaire there with you?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that your signature at the bottom of that page?
Right here.
Yes, ma'am.
And based on that information on that form, it was determined you're not eligible for an appointed lawyer today. Are you ready to proceed?
Well, I had requested for a lawyer, but they told me that as long as I could read and write the English language, they denied it.
Right, you said you weren't eligible for it. So are you ready to proceed?
Yeah, and then no. Let me explain why. Because the victim, as well as the witness, she has all the proper evidence of.
You can tell us about that. You can tell us about that once we get into our interview, but are you ready to proceed today?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
All right, let's move forward. All right, Mr. Thompson, you are accused of violating the conditions of your parole. And first is condition number 3. And condition number 3 states the address on your good time parole certificate on West Macomb, which is where you resided since you were released from prison November 15, 2023. On May 16, 2024, you were informed you're no longer allowed to have contact with IDs, and you would not be able to go back to live at the residence on West Chestnut Street due to reported threats that were made. Due to being a sex offender, you're required to live in an approved residence. On May 20th, 2024, you provided the address 3 Clearwood with no contact person or phone number. The parole officer attempted to make contact with someone at that 312 Clearwood address. However, there was no answer at the door. The officer left his business card in the door with a note to contact him. On May 23rd, 2024, another attempt was made to contact someone at that address. Having knocked numerous times, there was no answer at the door. The officer observed his business card that he left on May 21st, still in the door, so that address is denied. So how do you plead to violating condition number 3 about the approved residence?
I like to plead not guilty with a statement if it's all right with you.
Yeah, and we'll get your statement when Mr. Byra, your case has been assigned to, I'm sorry, Ms. Stapleton. She'll take the lead on the interview and she'll take your statement. But let's finish with the allegations first. So that's not guilty with a statement to number 3.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, okay. Then we have number 4, condition number 4. You engaged in criminal activity when you obtained, possessed, and ingested cocaine as evident by the drug screen administered to you April 8, 2024, which showed positive results for cocaine. So how do you plead to violating number 4?
I would like to also plead not guilty with a statement.
Okay. Then we have condition number 10. You failed to submit monthly supervision fee payments as instructed. You're currently $350 in arrears, having never submitted a payment. How do you plead to number 10?
Well, I lost my job. But how the
No, you can tell us about that, but you have to plead guilty or.
Okay. I want to plead not guilty with a statement.
And then number 13 says you had a special condition, which was pay your $65 processing fee. You failed to pay any money towards your $65 processing fee and your arrears on that fee. How do you plead to violating that condition?
Same as the last, Your Honor.
Is say it out. You gotta say it. What is it?
Not guilty. Not guilty. I want with a statement.
Okay, I got it. All right, as I said, your case has been assigned to Mrs. Stapleton. Would you answer her questions?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning, Ms.
Um,
Stapleton.
So I know that you're going to have a statement with everything, okay? I understand what you said on there. So the first situation is that you were supposed to live at a certain address on Street in Lacombe, Louisiana. And then we have that you weren't there. And then you gave an address at Slidell, Louisiana, correct? And that wasn't an approved address.
There is I can explain right now.
Yeah, come.
You may not believe this, but this is all this has been read. If you allow me to explain, and you can be the judge for yourself. On May the 13th, Mrs. Idea Baptiste received a telephone call on her cell phone at her house. She called me out of the kitchen and told me that sex offender registration at the courthouse in Compton want to speak to me. So when I get on the phone, Mrs. Angie Cooks asked me, could I come in a week ahead of time because she wasn't going to be in on Friday. I said, well, when would you prefer me to come in? I could do that for you. She said, well, come in tomorrow morning at 8:30. I came there at the courthouse at 8 o'clock. When I get to the courthouse to go in there for my annual registration, a couple of deputies after hearing me told me, excuse me, what is your name? And I told him, I said, Ron Thompson. He said, well, you the guy I was told to come get. I said, come get for what? He said, I was told to lock you up for a speeding ticket that was 2.5 years old. He said, I was told to arrest you for a speeding ticket. I said, 2.5 years ago, I was in prison. He said, hey, I know what you mean. He said, that ticket was supposed to have been done away with. He brought me over to the police station. And he got on the computer. He said, man, you is right. He said, this ticket's over 2.5 years ago. He said, you was in prison. I said, I was telling you that. He said, well, I'm still got to lock you up. So they brought me over to the jail. As soon as I get in the lobby at the holding tank, they stripped me completely naked and they put me on suicide watch without my permission, without me requesting it. They stripped me naked and I was denied a phone call for 4 days straight. They finally took me off and allowed me to make a phone call. And my bum's already preset for the $60, $70 ticket. And so when I get on the phone and call Mrs. Idell, which is my girlfriend, I've been living with her for 5 years at that address, Mr. David Belfont shows up in the holding tank and tells me, you can no longer live at that address. I said, why? He would never tell me why. He would never tell me why. And I said, I've been living at this address for 5 years, since 2019. I have never had a confrontation or argument with anyone.
Well, let me tell you why. This is why. It's because Miss Adele Baptiste said that you had been threatening her and that you had been drinking alcohol.
Okay,
She didn't want you there, so there was an order of protection.
okay.
So that was the end of that one. So that's what happened.
Okay. She said when she went to the hearing, if you look at that paper, she came to the hearing up here, the revocation hearing.
I see that, and that's not unusual. And then I read where she said that that this man has never ever threatened me, and that he helps me around the house, and he cooks and cleans, and he bathes her, and I haven't had a good bath since the man has been in jail. And that she's opposed to and she's not opposed to Parole Thompson living with her. So that's not unusual for that to happen.
Obviously, he didn't take the word for it, because I take her word or my word. He started going along with this issue. So she went to the people and got a documentation notarized. The people notarized, said the registration, and she tried to get the power of attorney, and she went to the courthouse to try to get the telephone logbook from the courthouse. They wouldn't give it to her. And
Let me ask you something. How did you come up with the next address? 3 Slidell. Where did that come from?
That's my old work partner. That's my work partner, and just so happened he had got in a domestic dispute or argument with his old lady, and he's locked up here.
Well, okay.
That's what happened.
So you used that address. So when they approached you and asked you about this other situation, how come it didn't come out? Why did you change your address then? Because I mean, they didn't come with this address, you did.
Because, miss, I didn't know what was going on. I told you, with all due respect, they strip me naked, throw me in the tank. 4 days later, the man come and see me, just straight out of the sky blue, told me I gotta get somewhere. So I'm wondering why.
Okay, so number 3. So you did give them another address, and it says, I will live at the address on this certificate. If I must move from the address, I will get permission from my parole officer before doing so.
You know, I did that without thinking, because when I kept asking him why, he would never tell me why, miss.
All right, so he went there, like was read, to the new address. You never were there. And then at one point, Mr. Philip Pierce was there, and he said that was his residence, and he stated that he did not know parolee Ron Thompson. So let's move on from that, okay?
Can I ask you a question, miss?
Okay.
My witness or the victim, she has signed notification paperwork authorized, it's been notarized, and she could testify to herself.
She's not here.
Okay, but you couldn't call her?
Well, no, that's what Zoom is for. She could have called in on Zoom. So we're going to go to number 4, okay? It says that you possessed and ingested cocaine as evident by a drug screen administered, and you showed positive for cocaine. You said you have a statement with that one. What's your statement?
Not guilty, miss. I have paperwork. Miss Adele Baptiste got all the paperwork, notarized and everything from Slidell Memorial Hospital. It's showing that the doctor, I fell off the job off the top of a house, and I was injected with morphine for pain, and they prescribed me medicine, and I went to Robert Road Accent Health, and they gave me a prescription for oxycodone. That's what that was.
Okay, so the prescription bottles that were sent in, one of them in your name, or your name, was a muscle relaxer, and the other one was ibuprofen 600 milligrams. It was not hydrocodone. You may have thought it was, but it wasn't.
She grabbed the wrong bottles off the dresser. I got numerous bottles on the dresser. She grabbed the wrong one. She's 70 years old and I'm 60 years old. She grabbed the wrong bottles. All you have to do is call her. Everything I'm telling you is the truth.
Okay, let's move on from there, okay?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
you failed to submit monthly supervision fee payments as instructed. You are currently $315 in arrears. Now, you said that you were behind on that because you hadn't worked, but you just now said you fell off a roof because you were working.
That's when I ain't been out for 6 months out of jail. I fell off the top of a house, and they had to take me to Slidell Memorial Hospital. And the lady doctor that was there, she hurried up and she shot me with morphine in my hip. I have the paperwork from Slidell Memorial. If you would call me, so I did everything signed and notarized. But y'all won't let her in the jail so she could testify, or so you can see the paperwork yourself.
Not my job. Okay, so, and then the last is a special condition for $65 processing fee. What you got to say about that?
I didn't have no money to pay it.
Oh.
It ain't like I wouldn't pay it.
All right. Well, I'm
going
gonna move it along to my other colleagues to see if they have any questions for you. Mr. Bauer?
I have no question.
All right, and I don't have any questions either, Mr. Thompson. It's unfortunate that Miss Idell is not here today. Everything we have in the record points to your violations.
I haven't committed a crime. There's nothing in the paperwork that said I committed a crime.
Thompson, you violated the conditions of your parole. I think we are prepared to vote, Mrs.
Yes.
Stapleton.
I vote to revoke your parole based upon violation of 3, 4, 10, and 13 conditions.
Mr. Barrow.
I vote to revoke your parole for the same reason as mistaken.
Mr. Thompson, the evidence that we have in the record refutes the statement you've made to us. So my vote today is I find you guilty of violating the conditions of your parole. My vote today is to also revoke. Good luck to you, Mr. Thompson.
Yes, ma'am.
That concludes our business at St. Tammany. It's 10:03.
Can I ask a question before y'all?
Which folder?
Okay, so let's unpack this. And I think it's, what's fascinating to me is that it's just like the same story. He's really good at rhetoric. And, it's just too bad. You would almost think if they could just find some way for him to use that in a positive manner. But there's a few ways I feel about this. I mean, it's clear that he's not a very good liar. He talks a lot, but it just doesn't add up. And he doesn't really seem to get that. It wasn't interesting how both parole hearings ended the exact same way with him trying to get that last word. I think it's just maybe it's just so accustomed to it, and just regular conversations or arguments. Now, from the first hearing I saw, it was like, well, he really didn't do anything, serious, dangerous felonies. Maybe if he had had a good attorney, probably he could have gotten out of it. An attorney would have said, look, he's been serving since he's been 16 years old in Angola since 1985. When he got out, he didn't fail any, drug tests. He didn't pick up any new felonies. He's struggling. Yeah, he's struggling as anyone would after being institutionalized. Give him another chance. We have this and this and this set up to make sure he'll do well. And maybe with that kind of representation, he would have gotten out. Now, this is a little different. Here you have the DV, and you have what's most really, I think, the scary facts here is that he was accused of taking Pepsi Cola. And once you're on that, it's only a downhill spiral from there, and it will go real quick and it can turn into some serious felonies. So in this case, I think you have to revoke, you have to reset it. What he has going for him, he seems to be in great physical shape. I mean, if I could be 60 and in that kind of shape, I'll sign up for that. But I don't know how much more time he's backing. And this person, he has, he has just had to have had taken aside the crime that he's locked up for. We don't have those details on it, but we do have quite a lot of information. Thank you, Richard, for sharing. We're not going to go through all of it, but it's more about interesting ideas and getting more of a picture of his life. Here's one where he sued the DOC, and I don't think he's wrong for suing them, but he was actually set to be paroled in 2009. And I guess I was wrong when I said that he was given another chance in the 2012 or the 2010 Miller versus Alabama, or the 2016 Montgomery versus Louisiana, because he was paroled much earlier. So it might have been in the Roper versus Simmons 2005, or even Graham versus it could have been that, or it could have been he wasn't given a life sentence and he was given something like 30 years, or I don't know. But either way, he was paroled in 2009, and they wouldn't parole him because he had no residence plan. There were no programs, I guess, to send him, but he had no residence plan, no family. So they actually held him in Angola for a whole nother 8 years. See the exact on Richard's notes, 14 years. He sat 14 years longer in prison than he had to because he didn't have a residence plan. So he sued them in 2015. You can see here he's serving a sentence for forcible sexual assault. So it wasn't even aggravated. It's just forcible. He filed a request for administrative remedy on 2015, contending the department had been holding him illegally past his parole release date of March 9th. In its first step response, the department noted that because Thompson is classified as a sex offender, having been convicted of this crime, he must comply with the department regulations requiring registration and approval of a residence plan prior to his release. Okay, that makes sense. Because Thompson's prior residence plan had been denied by the department requested that Thompson submit another residence plan to forward to the probation and parole district overview. Thereafter, Thompson filed an application for writ of habeas corpus and mandamus in the 19th Judicial District Court, requesting that the court declare that his custody had become unlawful and illegal due to the department's holding him past his release date. In particular, Thompson asserted that such action by the department unconstitutionally enforced the law ex post facto and violates due process, double jeopardy, and the Eighth Amendment. I wonder, this is clearly like a jailhouse lawyer type stuff, but I as you know, I'm no attorney. I don't know if they're putting up a good argument or not here. A commissioner, it seems to me, without knowing, that they're just kind of trying to check every box to increase their chances of getting one of them. A commissioner appointed by the district court to hear the matter would consider Thompson's action as a petition for judicial review of the department's decision denying his request for administrative remedy. After viewing the pleadings submitted by the parties, the commissioner recommended affirming the department's decision and dismissing the appeal, as Thompson is admittedly serving a sentence for a sex offense that requires him to obtain an approved residential plan. And he appealed that decision, and then it's quite simple. He can't leave without a residency plan because he's a sex offender, and he's saying, no, that's too bad, you should let me out. Thompson does not contest the department's determination that he is an offender, nor does he assert that he is an approved residence. That he has an approved residency plan. Rather, his argument centers around his contention that because he pled guilty to the crime of a sexual nature in 1985, the new requirement for parolees and good time parolees enacted in 2006 constitutes a retroactive application of the law, violation of constitutional rights. Okay, so at least we understand his legal argument now. The district court correctly noted that this identical issue was previously considered by the court, wherein the court, so they bring up a reference saying, no, you're not the first one to do this lawsuit, and too bad. There's precedents here. We recognize the petitioner was not released on the date February 23rd, 2007, that the department's master record indicated he could have been discharged pursuant to diminution of sentence. However, this was not due to inaction or omission by the department, resulting in violation of due process because it was deprivation without a hearing. As has already been established, the reason petitioner was not released on his good time discharge date is because he did not have an approved residency plan. Further, the fact that the department may not have deprived a prisoner of good time without hearing does not have any legal relevance to the situation. Further, with regard to petitioner's argument that he had contractual interest in good time that was impaired by the passage of in 2006 court that was bound by Bancroft v. Louisiana Department of Corrections into entry into good time credits. So he did get good time. I'm just wondering, he must not have had a life sentence. Makes clear that the conditions imposed by a prisoner release and diminution of sentence. Further, with regard, blah blah blah. I'll put the links in the description if you're interested. But in a nutshell, the conclusion: for ongoing reasons, we affirm the judgment in this district court, affirming the department's decision and dismissing Thompson's petition with prejudice. All costs of this appeal are assessed to this guy. Poor guy, man. He does all of this and then he's stuck with the bill, and I don't know what that bill might have been. And there's some things that come into play that question his, I guess, mental stability. Here's another thing that Richard found, another lawsuit. He's a bunch of lawsuits against the DOC. This one in particular can be concerning, where he seems to be insisting that people were putting substances in his food to kill him, poisons, things like that. So he's clearly suffering, and who wouldn't be if you were sent to Angola at 16 with that in your jacket, with a dirty jacket? You can only imagine his life must have been inside that prison hell. And then also, it seems, doing it alone. He has no residency plan. He has no family. If you want to feel empathy for him, you can probably feel it there. This man has lived a brutal life, you might say. But you can also make the argument we have seen the flip side. We have seen people who end up in Angola at a young age, and they find the way to make the best use of their time. They find ways to form relationships where they will have a residency plan. Maybe it's relationships with people outside the prison, or there's ways to create that for yourself. And there are programs, there are housing, there are entrepreneurs in Louisiana that buy and create special designated housing for sexual people in this situation that are subsidized by the government, that he probably ended up getting into, which is how he got out in the first place. And all he had to pay was $125, and he wasn't paying that. But it is interesting that he spent all that extra time in prison, and you might wonder, maybe part of him wanted to. I don't know. Can't look into his psyche, but we'll probably see him again. And I don't know if there are supposed to be, I don't even know where to go with this, but he does make for, if he could just find a way to use his gift of the gab, he might be able to do better for himself. Anyways, we probably will see him again. And we have the playlist. If you want to see more hearings like this, it's called Return of Playlist. It's where we see inmates return for multiple times, either because they've been revoked or for different reasons. We see it all. And thank you, Richard, for the info. And with that, I'll let you go.
Can I ask a question before y'all